I'm Abhinay Jain, Director, Product-led Growth at CleverTap. I also manage the CleverTap for Startups vertical. And today we are recording this episode with Richa Sethi. She's founder of GetLitt. She's based in Mumbai, India. And we are glad to record this episode finally, Richa. And before we start, right? I mean, I have read your story on LinkedIn. It's a fantastic journey that I see. Very inspiring. That you have been at it for a few years now. Would love to know more about you first, Richa. How when did you start? How did you start? And a little bit about you first, if you can sort of start from there.
Yeah, thank you so much for inviting me for this conversation. And I have been part of, I would say, the corporate world for almost 9 to 10 years when I kind of decided to step out. And idea was to kind of really make my work relevant in spaces which are very close to my heart. And that's how I kind of decided to move out proactively. And since then, I've been always involved in children's space. And the work that we do right now is not something which I kind of planned out in advance. And how a management or a product related activity would happen, that you decide a space and you look for a need, a gap, and then you kind of go into it. It happened quite, I would say, organically. I've been a book lover since my childhood. And when I became a parent, as now you are a young parent yourself, you would realize that you start getting oriented in that direction in a very different way. And as young parents, we said, we so much believe in the power of stories and books. And why not bring something like this to our children? Why not kind of create a space like that? And so we had very young kids at that point of time, 3-year-old and a 1-year-old at that point. And so we decided to take a very bold step of hosting a first literature festival for children in Mumbai. So that's how kind of our journey began, where that first attempt at hosting a lit fest kind of propelled us into this direction. And since then, we have kind of done a lot of programs in the offline space, started working with the schools, bringing our programs out there. And that was also a time which kind of first time we realized that there are a lot of passionate parents like us who want to bring literature to their children. And there were other publishers who were very small time believers in the cause of bringing contemporary stories to children. And that was one, I would say, avenue where we realized that this was a space which had multiple, I would say, stakeholders who were very eager to kind of get connected to one another, but it was extremely fragmented, especially in India. And since then, I would say now 10 to 11 years where we've kind of deep dive into this space with every new program initiative that we brought in.
That's good. I mean, finally, it takes some time, and I mean, there are a couple of pivots, and the story kind of evolves over time. Would love to know more about what GetLitt is in your own words, right? I mean, I could go to website, could understand a little bit, but would love to know more what GetLitt is.
Yeah. So our first kind of work in this space started off in 2012, which was in the offline space, which I mentioned was the Lit Fest. The Lit Fest was purely driven by volunteers, parent volunteers, where we had middle class parents, educated parents like us coming together and really kind of getting the festival off its feet.
This was which year, by the way, Richa?
2012.
2012. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And in Mumbai, and you had this Lit Fest in Mumbai.
Yeah,
Nice.
in offline space, Lit Fest in Mumbai, and we had all the new publishers, all you see right now, Fun Okay Please, Tulika, Karadi.
Okay.
Karadi is, of course, been a very old name, Amar Chitrakatha, kind of
Nice.
coming and approaching us, and through word of mouth, this kind of information came to them, and they became participants here. Then we launched another space called as the Young Sparks, which was again in the offline space, a scholarship-based program for children who are creatively talented. And this was a mentoring platform which we created, where we selected children who are talented on the writing and illustration side. And then these children are going to be mentored by professional writers and illustrators. And finally, their work is going to get published. And at that point of time, we saw around 17,000 students participating across Mumbai, and that was around 2014-15. And that is the time actually that was the first understanding of pivot which happened for us, because we realized that, here we are, nobody's in the space. We don't have a track record. And here we have created a scholarship-based program. And just within Mumbai, we see 17,000 students participating, out of which we are able to only mentor 6 kids. That's kind of, started playing on our mind, where we said we need to kind of look at digital, and we started going deeper into this space. And there also, this was a very small team, 2 to 3 people, working with, part-timers, bringing them on board, working with schools. That entire mapping happened again at a very, from the team perspective, happened at a very small, level. And we started working on a digital product which will again create the, solve for accessibility and discoverability. And we as we went deeper into studying this space, we realized that on one side, schools believe in the cause of literacy. They believe that reading and writing are critical skills. That is in fact one of the earliest pillars, the 3 R's that we talk about: reading, writing, and arithmetic. So they totally believe in the cause of early grade literacy. Parents understand that these skills are essential skills which we need to bring to our children. And on the other side, we had publishers who had already kind of started creating a huge amount of contemporary literature. So we realized that these three stakeholders, everybody has a strong need, and there is a fractured there's a gap in terms of the accessibility and I would say the distribution channels. Because if you really look around ourselves, we don't have your neighborhood libraries or community centers where we are really creating that affinity towards reading. So those are the gaps that we saw. And we realized that maybe the current need is that you do not know how to go and access these resources. And then your second need as a parent or a school is that I have to go and purchase these resources, or I need to really know where to go and get it. But eventually for us, the major pain point is working with the child, because the goal is that the child needs to get excited about reading. They need to really be part of that journey. So for us, the third major element became is motivation to stay put on this journey. So these kind of three became our pillars. And that's the time when we decided that we need to go digital. And GetLitt in its current form kind of came into existence. That was around 2018.
Okay, nice. That's nice. And what is the current team size? How did you go about building the tech stack, right? Because when you move from offline to online, right, while technology brings a scale, it's actually not that easy for everyone to, build their website, app, and the entire, scaling part. So how did you do that?
Yeah. So we were the segment experts. That was the time which we had already kind of spent around 6 to 7 years in that space, in the offline, working with each and every stakeholder very closely. We were running our programs in the offline space. So we just didn't want to be a website where you have a listing of, books and you still are not able to go to the next step. We want to kind of be part of that journey till the end.
Right.
That was the vision from beginning, that we wanted eventually, these are going to be the propellers, but finally we want children to own up the space where they are able to read and kind of also express their ideas. So that was always the vision. And to kind of enable that, I think we started off with the first biggest or the toughest vertical, which was about creating a digital library. Because again, we don't have a great physical distribution. So we said this has to kind of be the place where they're able to also read literature. And that required us to kind of going back to publishers and convincing them that, in this space, you require an alternate distribution or accessibility channel also. And let this be a parallel channel of discovery for your books. And so for a publisher, their content is their bread and butter. They wouldn't, can't let go of the content so easily. They have to be sure of that the platform is going to keep their content safe.
Right.
And so for us, those elements became a very important criteria of deciding the stack and how the platform will provide access to literature.
Got it.
So that kind of became the precursor. So now, of course, all our digital library is on AWS. We have made sure that the content is safe. We can be accessed on the website. We use Node.js and AngularJS there. And we have our native apps on both Android and iOS devices.
So the next question that I have for you, Richa, is how important, now you are at a different phase where your product is kind of clear. clear in terms of what you want to do. You have done your offline study, you have been in this for years now. You know the segment, you know what people want, and now it's the time where you would like to scale it further, right? So which is a tougher problem for you at this stage? Is acquisition, getting more kids to try a product, is that a bigger problem, or retaining customers is a bigger challenge for you currently?
We are the kind of say the first movers in this segment. We've been kind of
Right.
constantly we've understood that there's a gap in this space, and there was no set template of how do
Right.
you really manage this the gaps in this space. And we've taken that responsibility of constantly innovating and solving for this problem. So we are definitely much ahead of this. And for us, I think now it's about being able to, I would say we've not completely cracked retention, because as I said, our product intrinsically has a longer, lifetime value and journey associated, because a child's needs are progressing in the language space, and we are kind of being able to plug it in at multiple levels. So for us, it still has gaps, or I would say leaks, and that needs to be continuously kind of being plugged in. As on date today, I would say we need to focus more on acquisition, less on retention, because we are kind of we are comfortable with retention. We're getting good numbers and we are getting a lot of repeats.
Right.
Because somebody who was with us in a second or third grader is now back to us, has dropped out and come back to us in maybe fourth grader, or as a fifth grader, because now they understand that this is a skill which they require and they want to kind of go to the next level with us.
There is something unique about your business, Richa. The retention in your case is going to be slightly different for two reasons, right? One, when I look at your model, there is a buyer is a parent, and there's a user, which is children, right? So,
Yeah.
and also you have you have content or publication to manage.
Publisher at the back end, yeah.
Publisher, right? So you need to retain parents, you need to retain user, children, and you need to retain publisher, right? So it's a pretty difficult problem. So this is one part, and you should explain how you managed and give some frameworks around it. And the second part is, as I see on your website, right, your product caters to 7 to 12-year-old kids. So there will always be a cohort that will keep churning out, right, from 12 to 13 years, obviously, right? So as they age, right, this cohort will obviously keep moving out. So you have close to 5 years to engage a user, right?
Yeah.
So that also makes retention slightly different, right? And these type of problems also come with other companies, which are building products, let's say for old age, or for some pregnancy related, products and services. So such type of problems emerge. So I would like to know more. How did you look about retention, and how do you think about these two issues when you have different personas, buyer and user, and also when you have a constant cohort which will keep churning out?
Yeah. So I think the basic premise of retention is answered, which you would also agree, is when I'm able to answer the question as to why would a child or a parent or a school want to be with you, right? So if I really look at the child, they want to have fun and they want to enjoy stories with friends around. The experience should make them feel good about themselves. They are able to achieve a higher level of competency and confidence in expression, and overall a space which they should eventually own. Because it's right now, of course, you start with push through parents, but finally, the love that we are able to build into children will happen only when they say, okay, this is my space. I have the tools and I have the ownership. And that was one of the biggest criteria which we found, that everything is being brought down on kids. Where is that the choice or authority that we are giving to children to say, okay, this is my space, this is what I want to share about. No teacher is telling that this is not a right way to write, or I have the freedom of expression. A parent, whereas, is kind of comes to us primarily at the beginning because they want to bring the skills of literacy and literature to children. But eventually they want their children to be able to, the stories that they're able to access, using that as a fulcrum or a jumping off ground, and the skills that they're going to be achieving with us, their child is able to articulate and express their their ideas confidently. So for them, that's the goal. And how do we achieve this? Is the first is that our content, our literature has to be the best. It has to be exciting. It has to be really making children want to pick up the next piece of book, or want to flip the page and want to continue reading. So we have been able to, and that has been possible because the publishers have trusted us, and kind of we are really fortunate to have that kind of literature coming in, and that also has happened because of the previous work that we did. The second is that we need to be expert in the language art programs that we're bringing in. We are constantly innovating the pedagogy, the content that we kind of make as part of our multiple level programs. That's the best in this space, and we've always been few steps ahead of it. So those have to kind of really be the two fulcrums, and then have been our initiatives.
So, in your case, like, the channel through which you talk to this, children, what is the main channel like? Are you on WhatsApp? Are you on, do you use email, SMS, push notification? Which one is the most effective one that you have found so far?
See, because my primary user is the child, so push notification is what I can kind of directly kind of connect with them on. And parents and the mails and WhatsApp is something which is kind of used as an update, the milestones that children have reached. So those kind of information is kind of shared with them. But for children, push notification is the only way to reach them.
Right.
I hope we get more ideas from CleverTap, especially looking at this segment, because that's something which we really want to kind of go deeper into.
Yeah, definitely. I think this is very interesting because you are engaging a very different type of audience. Like, let's say if I have to engage somebody in 25 to 34 age group, it's a very well-known cohort, habits are well-known, but this is a very challenging segment as well, right? Coming to challenges, right? Taking, going little away from retention, let's come to something more about your life as a founder, right? Tell me, I know this is it's a long journey, it's a tough journey, right? What their mistakes, right? What their mistakes, and if you have to pick one,
Absolutely,
right?
absolutely. There are,
And talk about,
yeah,
if
I
you
would
can
say,
pick
I
one.
think in a founder's journey, there are very few successes. Majority are mistakes, honestly. Yeah, so I would say in the early stage, because see, when we knew that it is going to be now a digital platform. So once that got decided, and as I said, we picked up one of the most toughest vertical to kind of bring that digital library. Uh, Now idea was that, okay, are they going to pay us for it, or how do we really bring that value proposition to Indian parents? And so one of the most interesting, I would say, learnings that happened at that stage is we offered free access. Okay, so we ran a reading challenge, and we said for 2 or 3 schools, we said we are going to give free access to all your students for 2 months. And
Okay.
let them we'll do a reading challenge where children read, and they will win awards for it. Despite this entire library, this strong library that we gave free of charge, we got minimalistic reading happening on the platform,
Right.
and without kind of charging anything to them. So one thing that we did is we now launched our reading Olympiad, which again, as I mentioned earlier, we are the first ones globally to have this. And
Very
the
nice.
reason we are able to do this is because we have our own library. So the
Mhm.
basic premise behind any Olympiad is that, for example, if you have a maths Olympiad, grade 4, everybody's working on the same syllabus, and then they come and appear for the Olympiad, and the questions come from that fixed syllabus for that grade. Now, for a reading Olympiad to happen successfully, you need to have a same set of books which are being read by the same set of students. Otherwise, I can't ask questions from something else if you've not read it. So this time we created the reading Olympiad, and we went to the schools as a paid proposition.
Correct.
And we got around 500, and we did it only for a few schools, and we got around
Oh,
500 to
nice.
800 registrations. So for us, that was a first learning that, not everything being given free of cost, it has no value being seen.
Right, right.
So the same proposition, kind of worked in a very different manner, but, which had a payment structure of fees associated with it. We saw huge kind of, I would say, acceptance at the school as well as the parent level. So that was
Right.
so we've never kept anything now for free, except for the initial trial period. And idea is to kind of really up your value add constantly, and your communication, and you bring that brand and the trust where people know that this is something which is coming from a credible source, and try to push the envelope out there. So that's been one of our big learnings, I would say, in the initial stage.
Very nice example, actually, indeed, right? When I think of it, makes sense, right? Because when you pay for it sometimes, and it's short term, as you mentioned, right? Short term, I am paying for this competition, I want to win, then overall the seriousness level will go up,
Will
so which is
increase.
very
Yes.
right, so that makes a good example. Were there any incidents when you looked at data or some pattern, right? And some kind of analytics you did, and it can be like, you're looking at too much data or you're not looking at any data, and that led you to a poor decision or a great decision.
So when parents enroll for our programs, so we've done the initial discussion and, they are ready to kind of join in. One of the point comes in where you have to decide which, so we don't do one-on-ones. We have small batch sizes cohorts which kind of come on board. And uh, again, one of the learnings for us was that we said we're going to give, they have to select a day or a time or a slot batch in which they want to kind of, on board, come in. And we thought, we're going to give them options that, okay, you can tell us
Yeah,
when you want to do, and we'll kind of plug enough faculty member. And what we realized is, we thought that choice of, when do you want to come in and stuff is going to improve on the customer service level, and they're going to really, the decision making and, the conversions will be faster and better.
correct.
Whereas when we looked at the data, we realized that, the lead time of after you've done the demo and you want to kind of convert, you're kind of really going into the loop, because now you've given too much of choice, and we are actually, going down in terms of our conversions, versus a parallel, kind of, which was a little antithesis, where we said, okay, we are going to run our tracks on beginners on this day at this time, and another option on this day and this time. And when they go to the next level, this is pre-decided slots.
Right.
And, kind of giving them a very selected few choices. For them also it became easier. Either you're convinced about the program and you'll come on board, or that entire loop of follow-ups and conversion is something which we can really save on time in terms of the resources, in terms of the conversion level. So that was something which we kind of discovered only through, there were so many demos happening, but the conversion levels were kind of going down with the kind of choices that we were giving them. Whereas you kind of gave them a zero sum kind of a thing, that these are the, so that was a parallel experiment which we ran, and we thought, and this was out of desperate attempt, because we did not know whether this is going to work or not. But that kind of came to us only when we kind of really looked at that entire funnel that we had created. So that was one bit which really helped us.
Very nice. Thanks so much for sharing this, Richa. I found couple of very, what to say, very good insights. Like when I asked about, how did you build your technology team or something, you mentioned about why, content safety is very important for publication. And that's how you thought about, building technology and so on. How you thought about that experiment, where you did first free, and then, you put a charge to it, and then the seriousness came in. So there were good insights in the entire conversation, Richa. It's a very exciting product that you are building. Really happy that we at CleverTap, as CleverTap for Startups, could partner with you, and would love to continue this journey together, help you retain your customers better. Thank you so much for taking your time, Richa. We'll be in touch. Thank you.